I'm joined now by the Transport Secretary, Mark Harper. Very good morning to you. Thanks so much for joining us. I want to start by talking about the Rwanda policy, blocked by the Supreme Court, of course, this week. The now former Home Secretary, Isuela Braverman, has written an article in today's Telegraph in which he says there's no chance of stopping the boats unless we pull out of European human rights laws and we also disapply domestic human rights legislation. What do you make of that? Is she right?
Well, look, the point is we do need to make changes to the legal position. That's why on Wednesday, immediately after the Supreme Court judgment, the Prime Minister set out two things. First of all, we're concluding a new treaty with Rwanda. We weren't sitting on our hands when the Supreme Court was considering this case. We were already working on contingencies depending on what they set out. That treaty is near conclusion and we'll conclude that, set it out, put it into law. The second thing is we're going to introduce emergency legislation in Parliament so that Parliament can clearly set out its view about the safety of the legal system, the asylum system in Rwanda. That'll make the position very clear for the courts, and we're confident that that will enable us to send people to Rwanda to break the business model of these organised crime groups, which is what the British people want us to do.
But that doesn't address European human rights law, does it? So are we going to have to leave the European Convention on Human Rights in order for this scheme to work? Should we be prepared to leave it?
Well, look, we've made it, the Prime Minister's made it very clear that we're determined to deliver on the promise that we made, and he's made it clear that if it's necessary to change our international agreements, then we're prepared to do so. But Parliament's going to set out very clearly the legal position, and I think if Parliament's made a very clear express view, then I think people will listen to that. But the Prime Minister said, in the end, he's prepared to do what it takes to deliver our commitment. You've seen how determined he is. He made a commitment last year to halve inflation. People didn't believe that would happen. We delivered that commitment this week. He's made a commitment to stop the boats. We've reduced the numbers by a third at a time when they've been going up in Europe. So we're going to continue with the plan set out this week to make the changes necessary.
So do you think that involves leaving the European Convention on Human Rights?
Well, I think my experience in the past is when a domestic Parliament has made a very clear position, then actually the European Court responds accordingly. That's what I hope they do. But look, the Prime Minister said, if we need to, we'll change our international agreements and relationships in order to deliver this policy. But we've set out, I think it's better to take these things in stages. We've set out a plan to conclude the treaty with Rwanda, which I think will address the specific concerns that the Supreme Court had, and we're going to then change domestic legislation. And I think that's the right plan.
So when will flights take off?
Well, we're still shooting and have the ambition to deliver those flights in the spring as planned.
Can you guarantee that?
And we think that delivering this new treaty and changing domestic legislation will enable us to do so. The Home Secretary made it clear in Parliament yesterday that's his intention, and that's what the government is absolutely focused on delivering.
Can you guarantee that they will take off by the spring?
Well, look, that's what the government is focused on delivering, and as I said, look, we made a commitment to halve inflation, we delivered it. The Prime Minister's made a clear commitment to stop the boats. That is what the government is focused on delivering. We've already hit one of our pledges. We're determined to meet all of them.
OK, let's turn to the autumn statement, because there are reports this morning that the Chancellor is considering cutting inheritance tax in the autumn statement next week. I know you're not going to be able to confirm what he's going to say, but I want to know whether you'd like to see that happen. Should it be a priority?
Well, look, one thing I've learned in my time in politics is I'm not going to speculate about what the Chancellor...
I'm not asking you to speculate. I'm asking you to say whether you'd like to see that happen.
You kind of are, because you're asking me to express a view about whether the Chancellor should or shouldn't do something in the autumn statement. Look, the Chancellor will consider all of these matters in the round, focusing on the need to control the public finances. The difficult decisions we've made in the past, which not everyone agreed with, is why we were able to halve inflation this week. So he will set out his approach next week. I will wait for him to set out his judgment in the round for tax and spending measures at the autumn statement.
But what would you like to see? Would you like to see inheritance tax as part of the mix? Should that be a priority?
Look, I'm not as close to the numbers as the Chancellor. I think the Chancellor needs to look at the public finances as a whole. He needs to look at our plans to grow the economy. He needs to look at the tax revenue that's coming in, and he needs to look at what the public finances look like. Our view is we need to deliver solid public finances. That's how, in the end, you can control inflation, which is the best way to put money into the pockets of ordinary men and women up and down the country.
The Chancellor does have headroom. If he does have the money, should he use that? Should it be a priority to cut taxes?
Well, look, that's where you're asking me to speculate on what the Chancellor should do.
No, just what your priority would be should he have the headroom.
The Chancellor needs to look at the position overall, and And I'm content to let him make the judgments about how to spend that money, whether it's on more public spending, whether it's on reductions in tax. But the best thing we can do for people in the very short term is continue driving down inflation. That's what's been causing the pressures on people's pockets. And that's why it was welcome to see the halving of inflation this week.
OK, I wonder if you might be able to comment on other reports then that suggest that the government is planning a new benefits crackdown. They're saying that benefit claimants who refuse to look for a job will lose their right to free NHS prescriptions, as well as dental care and help with energy bills. Is that a fair policy, given that we're in the middle of a cost of living crisis that disproportionately affects people on lower incomes?
Well, look, the best way we can help people who are not working is to enable them to get into work. And I think it is reasonable, if you are able to work and you've got a job offer, that you do take it. You know, under universal credit, we do expect people to take the jobs that they're offered, and that they're always going to be better off in work under universal credit. And if they're in work, they're always going to be better off getting a pay rise or working more hours. And I think, and the other thing that we're doing, the Work and Pension Secretary has set out a very clear plan to give people more support to get back into the workplace. I think most people who work for a living, who pay taxes, would expect someone who's not working, who's able to work and gets a job offer, to take that job and start contributing to the economy. I think that's very reasonable and very uncontroversial.
The message, if you read the papers this morning, the message seems to be from the government that will give tax cuts to the richer people and will crack down on the poorer.
Well, no, I think actually helping people get back into work, and you've got to provide support for people to do that. And the Work and Pension Secretary has set out clear plans to provide those people who are not working at the moment the help and support to get into work. But I think it's reasonable that if you provide that help and support and someone gets a job offer, they're going to be better off in work than not working under our benefit system. I think it's reasonable to expect them to take that job offer. That's what people who work for a living and pay taxes, work really hard, that's what they would expect people to be asked to do.
OK, I want to talk about potholes, because I know you want to talk about potholes. That's why you're here, mainly. You're announcing £8 billion going towards potholes, fixing potholes. And when you cancelled the HS2 Manchester leg, you did say you were going to put money into local projects. But I'm sure no one will complain about fixing potholes. But is this really the big infrastructure project that people could have been hoping for?
Well, it's one of the things we're doing. It's £8.3 billion over 11 years. We're announcing today the first tranche of that. It's £150 million to local authorities this year and next year, setting it out at local authority level. That is over that 11-year period, that is the single largest increase ever in money for the quality of local roads. It's the top priority for 96% of drivers. And it doesn't just mean councils can fill potholes. It means they can actually have a proper plan over a long period. That's what they've been asking for, to actually be able to have a proper programme for resurfacing roads. And the money we've set out would enable them to resurface over 5,000 miles of roads over that period. So it'll make a significant impact.
And very briefly, is it ring-fenced? Is it guaranteed that councils will spend that money only on potholes?
Well, look, we're giving it to local authorities and we want to make sure they're held accountable. So one of the other things we're doing is making sure they have to be transparent about what they're spending the money on. Their local electorates can then hold them to account.
OK, we have to let you go.
Pleasure.
Mark Harper, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.